Okay, hello. I'm Stephanie Somatics. Today we are talking about the experience of your brain-body disconnect. I am going to take a second and let y'all hop on here. Hello. I already see some familiar faces. Okay. Let's talk about this really weird experience we have as humans, where your brain is having one experience of your life and your body is having another. Really, the goal of talking about this today is I want you to come away with the understanding that there's going to be experiences where your body and your brain just have a different experience. They are different functioning systems, and so the way that they process information, the way that they interpret the information is just inherently different. And so really the work in somatics that we do is to help you trust the information your body is giving you and to help your brain understand that the information your body is giving you is totally valid, is totally real, and just as important as the information that your brain has. Okay. So let's first establish what this means, what I'm talking about when I say the brain-body disconnect. The experience probably goes a little something like this. You are living your life, going about your day, and you start to have a feeling. You start to have a feeling in your body that your brain doesn't necessarily understand. You probably have the thought of what's wrong with me? What's going on? Why is this happening? And slowly but surely, the feeling in the body doesn't go away. It might get bigger. It might get more confusing. If we look at something like maybe an anxiety attack that feels like it came out of nowhere, as an example, your brain will continue to ask these questions. Why is this happening? What is happening? What's going on? And repeatedly, the more that your brain asks that, the more revved up you'll get, right? And your body is doing the revving, and your brain is doing a different kind of spinning. Your brain is asking these questions. What's happening? Why is this happening? What's going on? Are we crazy? Are we falling apart? And your body is saying something's wrong. And your brain is going, but nothing's wrong. We're fine. We're totally okay. Or maybe it's even vice versa. Your brain is saying we should be freaking out right now, and your body is like, we're good. Don't know what you're talking about. Either way, in that experience, you've got two operating systems. You've got your brain, you've got your body, and they're not in conjunction. They're not on the same page. I want to just take a breath with that for a second, because that experience in itself can be so scary and weird and uncomfortable and confusing. I know for myself, having lived through a multitude of those experiences, really it was what brought me to somatic work. It's scary. It's scary to be sitting in that moment thinking, am I going crazy right now? That is a gnarly place to be sitting in. So I want to just slow down for a moment and take a breath. You're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with you. You are having a human response to a very stimulating and chaotic world. Your body, as an operating system, is constantly taking in information. So let's start there. When your body is having a reaction or an experience where it's saying there's something wrong, something is happening that I don't like, I'm scared, I'm overwhelmed, blah, blah, blah. It's using the sensations of feeling to communicate with you. The feeling of freak out, I'm dying, I gotta run away, something is wrong. Your body creates that feeling inside of you to alert you that something is scary, something is wrong. Your body puts you into the experience of panic to ask for help with the panic. So I'm really personifying the body a lot, and I'm going to do that a lot today. That's really one of my big beliefs in doing this work is that we need to personify the body and almost see it as a separate individual, another person that we are building a relationship with. And as you build that relationship, you get to know them. Just like your best friend, there is a particular nuanced way your friend can say like, hey, what's up? And you know, without a shadow of a doubt, how they're actually doing. From just these very small words that are very common, you hear all the time, you know that person so well that when they say it in particular tones, with a particular posture, with a particular kind of eye contact, you know without a shadow of a doubt how they're really doing in that moment. And that is the kind of relationship we want to build with our body. When we can do that, and your body starts sending these messages like, I'm not okay, something's wrong, freak out. When we have this relationship with the body and can go towards it in that moment, just like you would go towards a friend, you start to build out tools that help you interpret the communication style your body is using and then take care of the body. And when we take care of the body, then we see that brain and body connection start to happen. Your brain gets on board, your body starts to regulate, and you feel like capable, empowered to make whatever changes are needed to live your life, to feel okay during your day. So your body is doing this. Your body is creating these feelings and sensory experiences of emotion based on incoming information. When we look at the incoming information neurons in your body versus the outgoing information neurons, incoming is like you put your hand on a hot stove, it's hot, that message gets sent up to your brain, to your spine, to your nervous system, and then the outgoing all the way back to lift your hand up, that's hot, we don't like that. The number of information neurons, the number of receptors is like, it's like an 80-20 split. 80-20. Not half and half. It's all incoming. Your body has a huge number of incoming information sources. And so it's always taking in. It's always taking in. And because of this, your body is having a different kind of experience. Think about it like if your body was like the post office and was just open 24 hours, there was always mail coming in. There was always messages. It's like having a phone where you're always accessible all the time. There's always information coming in, always information coming in. But there are not nearly enough people to send stuff out, to organize the information, to interpret it, to arrange it so that you can then respond to all of those different things. And so because of that, we get these sensory experiences that start to overwhelm us. There's so much information coming in that there's just a different system needed to process it. It's not going to be the logical cognitive one that our brain uses because that's very organized, it's very structured. And your body is just being flooded with information in an experience where your brain and your body are disconnected. And I want to note that an experience like that typically tells me that you've had some kind of teaching in your life where you learned not to trust what was happening in your body. And this doesn't necessarily have to be labeled as trauma. It can be just a narrative from your family. We don't do that in our family. We don't have it role modeled. Being in the feeling, being in the experience, you have to learn to trust those things. And we often, in Western culture, are taught not to trust them. If you've experienced trauma in relationship to your body and had that invalidated, that didn't happen, or it's not that bad, it's not that big of a deal, you're making it up, all these kinds of invalidating statements are how we learn, I guess I'm not feeling this in my body, or I guess this isn't what it was, or, I guess it's not bad. There's some kind of learning that we do in life where we see the experience the body is having and we go, no, that's not valid. No, that's not important. And when we talk about trusting your gut, that would require trust. That would require relationship, because you don't have trust without a relationship, right? So the experience of the disconnect in the brain and the body, really when we're looking at it from the body perspective, first and foremost, we have to acknowledge that what your body is feeling is real. We don't have to justify it. You don't have to quantify it. If it is having a feeling, that's enough for me. That's enough for me. And part of what I teach is that, I'm going to help you learn how that can be enough for you too. Now, this is hard for the brain because the brain really, really loves, again, the structure, the organization. I want it in a box and I want it clearly structured and clearly defined, right? And we can get there. We can get the brain on board. But in order for our logical brain to literally turn back on in our head, we have to get out of a trauma response. When your brain is in your fight-flight state, you are thinking. The thinking part of you, your prefrontal cortex in your brain, the whole thing helps you think, but in particular, the part of you that understands consequences and logical thought, it turns off when you're in a trauma response. And so in order for us to get out of the trauma response, we have to start with where you're experiencing that, which is in your body. So we do get to this place of helping the brain understand, but we start with the body in somatic work. And it is different for different folks based on where you are in your journey. A little while ago, I had talked about some of the differences between talk therapy and somatic therapy. And if getting into your body isn't something that you're able to do quite yet, because the body is the place of feeling, and the feeling can be overwhelming. If you can't get into the body and tolerate the experience of feeling, then we have to start with the brain. And if you can cognitively understand what I'm saying, then that tells me you're already starting this process. If you can cognitively understand, I'm having a trauma response, that response is normal and okay, there are things I can do to take care of myself. That's what, cognitive work really helps us do, is identify our patterns and understand the ways in which we are thinking about what's going on and really help us gain structure to think about that in a more compassionate way. Once you've got the cognitive understanding of it, meeting the body is a game changer. Because again, the body is where you're experiencing it. So the disconnect in the brain and the body happening somewhat because we are invalidating the experience the body is having. That phrase I used at the beginning of this, of the brain saying, what are you doing? Something is wrong. You're acting crazy. All of that. If we said that to another person, gaslighting, invalidating, minimizing, all of the things, we are pushing away that person's experience. We are saying that I can't handle that. I don't want to be around that. And if we're saying that to ourselves, if we're saying that to our own body, and the relationship that we have with our body is the way in which we heal our past trauma, what we're saying to the version of us who went through that past trauma is, I don't think that's real. I don't want to be around you. Get away from me. I don't want to deal with this right now. It's just not the vibe. We want to be kind and empathetic with ourselves. We want to, at least if we're not ready for that step, create space for the body. And I think this is really the true starting point of what somatics gives us, is how do we create space for the experience? And I find that creating space is what helps us manage, regulate, and change the experience of disconnect between the brain and the body. And what I mean when I say creating space is going to be similar to like how you would, help a friend manage a big feeling. I would sit with them. I would be patient with them. I would listen. I would say, tell me what happened. I want to understand. How are you doing right now? What if we did that with the body? The place, the being that is having the experience. What if it became part of our practice to go towards the body and say, hey, what's happening right now? Help me understand. Are you okay? You're not okay. Okay, we're not okay. Ooh, let's take a couple breaths together. What can I do to help you be 1% more okay right now? That connective experience is really what we practice in somatics. That's really what we're all about. And in that process, what you're also doing is creating the relationship with the body. You're establishing that you are a reliable person, a trustworthy person, a patient person, a safe person. And the safety is a big piece that I wanted to note today. When our body is in an experience that the brain doesn't necessarily quite understand yet, let's phrase it that way. What it is actually like a flag and a doorway into the core area of your healing that needs the attention. Our bodies experience time differently. Our emotional body experiences time differently than our brain does. And what I mean by that is in these experiences where there's this disconnect between your brain and your body is saying something is wrong and your brain is going, there's nothing wrong. Your body often is in a response that is familiar in some way. It's familiar because your body is responding to the outside stimulation, the incoming information, in the same way that it did when it learned these kinds of danger signs. So let's break down what that means a little bit. For example, for myself, let's say I'm trying to think of an example when I was having a panic attack, because that's an easy one to pull from. Okay, I'm at home. There's technically nothing wrong. In my head, technically there's nothing wrong. But in my body, my heart is pounding. I am sweaty. I am pacing around the house. I am now sweaty thinking about this memory. And that is actually exactly what we're talking about. Even though right now I am okay, I'm fine, and talking about the experience of a panic attack, my body says, oh, are we having a panic attack, Stephanie? Let's start that up. And so now I've got sweaty palms. There's that feeling of heat in the body. And this is the way that your body experiences time differently than your brain does. My brain can know we are fine, we're okay. My body says, are we? Are you sure? And this is how we actually dive into the core wounding, the deep inner traumas, the crux of your work is through these experiences that your body uses to alert you to what you need to look at. So in a moment when there's a disconnect between your brain and your body, it is actually this big waving flag that says, hey, right here is where the work can be done. And you can do it right now. You can do it right now. You can repair and reparent and take care of this old part of you. And this happens because your body is reactivating the muscle memory of how to respond in that situation. And I see this time and time again in my work with clients. We can be talking about an experience and I watch them go back into it. You just watched me go back into it. I said, here's an example of a panic attack I had, and I started to have the body symptoms of that same panic attack. This is because my emotional body experiences time differently. And we can use this to take care of ourselves. So in that moment, in that experience of panic attack, me pacing my house, what's going on? My brain is like, Stephanie, are we okay? Are we not? Are we crazy? Are we not? That's my cue. That's my cue to slow down and take a second and tune into my body and say, whoa, something is happening for you right now. Something is going on. Help me understand. What do you feel right now? And I'm going to attune to my body just in the way that I would attune to a friend. Hey, what's happening right now? Are you okay? You're not okay. What? Okay. What can we do to help take care of you right now so that you can be a little more okay? Tell me about it. Let's talk about it. Would that help? And all of those questions you can do with yourself. You can do with your body. And if you are a journaler, I find that this is a really good exercise to practice, is writing to your body and then letting your body write back to you. I would say in my little journal, doesn't have to be little, in my journal, hey body, I see you're having an experience. I see that you're hot. I see that you're sweaty. Help me understand. What else are you feeling? From my body, I would then write, I feel panic. I feel speed. I feel like I can't slow down. I feel like if I slow down, nothing's going to get done. And if nothing gets done, I'm unproductive. If I'm unproductive, then I am not enough. And there it is. There's your core. And yours may not necessarily be that quick. That is my story. And so I can walk right into the heart of that. But for you getting curious, what is your body saying in this experience? That's really the big question. What is your body trying to communicate to you in that moment? When it is having that flare-up, whether it is shutting down and numbness, whether it is heat and speed, whether it is like chaotic explosions, what is your body trying to tell you? And maybe getting to that answer takes a second. Maybe it's not like a jump from A to Z. Maybe we got to do all the little steps. And in those little steps, we are creating a relationship, right? So much of what I do with folks is not give them the answers, because that doesn't actually solve anything. You know, part of why we do repetition in our learning experiences is because that's how we learn as humans, through experience and through repetition, through practice. Being in relationship with your body is just a practice. I know I'm sitting here telling you about all these things you can do with your body. Here's an idea. Here's how you talk to it. Here's the questions. And I want you to know, the other day I sat down in my meditation and I just tuned into my body. And I said, what do you want me to know today? Hey, how's it going? I'm here. And my body was like, hey, nice of you to take a second to actually sit with me. My body was mad. My body was like, you don't really come here that often anymore, and I really wish you did. And so it's okay to not get this right. It's okay to not have like the perfect magical relationship with your body. It's okay to not do it every day. The biggest piece is that at some point we do. At some point we do prioritize it. And when we prioritize it, we start to make that a habit. It's a relationship. If I was in a relationship with a person and I had been ignoring them for some time, and then I sat down, I would also expect to hear, hey, it's really good to see you. I haven't seen you that much lately. I really wish I saw you more. That would be okay for a friend to say to me too. And that would make sense. And that is what my body said recently. So when you're noticing this experience of disconnect between the brain and the body, we can go towards the body. We also want to get curious about what story your brain is telling about what it means to be having that experience in your body. I spoke with a client today about the particular words that they have used to label their outbursts or emotional expressions when they present in a particular way. Whether they are big, whether they are loud, there's a particular word that this client used to label, oh, when I do that, I look XYZ. I know for myself, the story that I've told myself when I am in a big feeling is you look crazy. That story I want to get really curious about. And I want you to get curious about for yourself. When you notice a disconnect between brain and body, what is the story your brain tells you about what it means for you to be having that experience in your body? Does your brain say, we look crazy? Does your brain say, we are falling apart? Oh my gosh. Does your brain say, we are broken? What is the story that's being created? And that story is also a part of the work. Where did you learn that? Is that your word? Is that your story, or did somebody teach you that? Did you learn that somewhere? Was that an experience that taught you? I find we don't typically create those kinds of narratives by ourselves. We create them in relationship. When we're kids and we're learning how to be a human in a human body, which is drastically difficult, we are absorbing every piece of information that we're getting from people around us. Our caregivers, our parents, our siblings, the people in power like teachers or other adults, neighbors, aunts, uncles, whoever it is. We are absorbing all of the information, verbal and nonverbal. Nonverbal in particular is a huge part of our communication. It's like 70+% of our communication style. Yes, you're listening to my words, but you are also listening to the movements I'm making, the eye contact, the speed of my voice, the tone and the levels of my voice, really the energy of me being here. You're listening to more than just the words. And when you're a kid and your brain isn't as big as it is now, you are heavily relying on the nonverbal communication because you're just figuring it out. You'd never been 5 before. You'd never been a human before. And so everything was new, including how to be a human with human emotions, human experiences in a body that makes you feel things. That's hard if nobody helped you understand what to do with those. And I find that this is often where we learn to invalidate the experience in the body, to shut it down, turn it off, don't acknowledge it, don't go towards it, lean away. And that's what I want you to get curious about. Where did I learn? Where did I learn to do this? When did I learn to do this? And all of these questions can give you so much information about not only the relationship to your body, but also the way in which you will manage your emotional well-being as an adult. I can have a very short phone call with somebody and very quickly tell what we're working with based on how fast they're talking, whether they slow down when I slow down, and what kind of languaging they're using to address what's happening in their body or their emotional experience in life. And this skill set is something you can use to learn about you. When your brain and your body aren't on the same page, we want to get curious. We want to pause and we want to wonder, I wonder why that's happening. My brain and my body aren't on the same page. What is keeping them separate? And this train of thought actually takes us into the way, again, your body takes information, the way we validate the emotional experience in our body, and the way that your brain will process what's going on based on how you're responding. We can't turn the brain off, tragically. But we can slow things down and use that incredible brain power to figure out some other things. You have a natural skill, a natural muscle called interoception, and it is your internal ability to feel your inside experience. This can be something really simple, like having butterflies in your stomach or a pit in your belly, or like before you're going to cry, that feeling of tightness in your throat. All of that is the way that your body is communicating to you. And you're able to feel that because of your interoceptive muscle, your interoceptive ability. And when we strengthen our interoceptive muscle, we can actually very clearly note what kinds of messages and experiences our body is trying to communicate to us. What we do there is tune in with that awareness, but in order to tune in, we have to slow down, right? And slowing down is not always something your brain wants to do. But unfortunately, we want to reframe the way our brain sees that. I guess that's not unfortunate. That's a good thing. We want to reframe the way your brain sees this idea of slowing down. The brain, for myself, will often say, if I'm not doing anything, then what's the point? If I'm not doing anything, then I'm not fixing this. But actually, the most powerful doing that we do with the body is be. You being with the body in the experience, using that interoceptive muscle to track and experience the emotion that's present in your body, doing that is the most significant thing. The more that you do that with your body, the more you establish, I'm going to come towards you, and then the more you build that relationship with the body. This is where we start to see a shift for people, where I start to see a shift for people, because you're coming around this loop quicker where you turn towards yourself. And I want to note that some of my approach is influenced by being taught and raised in a Western culture where the individualistic approach is really put on the front burner. In other cultures, the community piece is placed first. And I firmly believe that that is crucial, powerful, and important. And I find that by building the relationship with ourselves, we actually have more capacity to be in deeper relationships, because we have a deeper awareness of our own triggers and can ask for help more successfully and take care of ourselves more successfully. If you know your triggers inside and out, if you know your core wounding inside and out, when it shows up, it's much less likely to take over you because you can recognize it, and then there's a relationship together. It's not that this being gets in your car, pushes you into the passenger seat, and takes off driving, because you know how to see them coming. You know how to wave at them through the window, ask them to go around the other side, let them get in the car, and say, okay, I see you're here. Where do we want to go with this? And that conversation, that kind of relational, tuned in, communicating with the body, I think that is like the most empowering experience that you can have in your own body, because you take back your own efficacy and put yourself in charge of your own life. I think last week I had talked to you guys about how when we look at triggers, we sometimes can talk about them as like light switches and how they can get activated by other people. But we want to make sure that we bring our light switches inside the house, right? Because if they were outside your house, anybody walking by could just start flipping your lights on and off. Trigger on, trigger off, trigger on, trigger off. And it really takes away the accountability, the responsibility, and the ownership. That's my trigger. That's my activation. And if it's my activation, then I am responsible for knowing everything about it. All of it. And if I know everything about it, then I also know the stories and the narratives that I have about it. If my story and narrative says that being triggered is bad, then I'm telling the trigger itself, you're bad. And I have a whole reaction to that. If I am telling a part of myself, you're bad, if I'm telling the young part of me that is being reactivated in the present day, you're bad, how is that young part going to find safety in me enough to be able to heal with me? I had seen a little picture recently that said, when I speak critically to myself, when I speak down to myself or to my body, I realize who I'm actually talking to, and it showed a little picture of themselves when they were a child. And that got me right in the feels. Oh my God. That is exactly how we look at it in somatics. When you are activated in your present day, you aren't adult you. Your activation, your trigger, is actually time traveling you back to the time in your life when you were first experiencing that particular kind of trigger and activation. Whether it was the invalidation, the abandonment, the fear, the panic, the worry, whatever it is, you are time traveling back to that moment. I had a conversation with a client recently where they said, I feel like a teenager. And I said, yeah, what if we are actually dealing with teen you? And that was the moment our whole conversation changed. Because if we're dealing with a teenager, a 14-year-old, I am not going to yell at them to get it together. I, at 14, I did not respond well at 14 to people saying get it together. I don't respond that well to it as an adult, frankly. And it's because when I hear that phrase, my body takes that information in and says, ooh, I know what this is. I know what's going to happen here. This is pretty familiar. And that means if it's familiar, I know how to respond. And the muscle memory kicks in. The muscle memory kicks in and suddenly, whoop, I am teenager Stephanie. Not adult Stephanie, I am teenager Stephanie. That is who is present. And because of that, yeah, my brain is going to have a hard time understanding that because logically and literally, yes, I am an adult. I'm not a teenager. Emotionally, in that moment, my emotional expression of self is like my teen self. And if I address that teen expression of Stephanie in my body like I would treat an actual teenager, there's a huge shift in difference. There's a huge shift in the body. Because I want to take care of that teenager. I know that at 14, oh my God, life was weird and hard and difficult for a myriad of reasons. And I'm so sorry that here you are again, all these years later, hearing that phrase again. I know that doesn't feel good for you. What can I do to help you with that? And that is different than you're crazy. Stop doing that. Why are you doing this? Get it together. It's very different. And what'll happen is because we can't turn the brain off, as you're doing this process, as you're doing this experience, your brain is kind of tracking and following along. It's watching and it's taking in that information and observing. And I find that actually at the end of that experience, your brain is pretty on board on its own. Your brain is smart enough to do the dot connecting all on its own. Your brain can do that on its own. Your body needs to learn how to do that because your body wasn't taught, and your body learned through role modeling. Your body learned through role modeling and attunement. And that is what I'm describing doing when you pause and you go, hey, what's going on? What's happening right now? I'm noticing, I'm pausing, and I'm leaning towards, I'm going towards. That attunement is the same experience that we would have if you heard a baby crying. You would stop, you would redirect, you would go towards that baby because you noticed, you heard it, and you're going to go towards because something's wrong, something's happening. The timeline for this kind of work really varies depending on who you are and how, I want to say like how ready you are to sit in discomfort. And I know that's like a weird thing to hear, but it reminds me of a Brené Brown quote about integrity. Integrity is choosing courage over comfort. It is choosing what is right over what is fun, fast, or easy. It is choosing to practice our values rather than simply profess them. And I think that is really what somatic work asks of us, to practice our values rather than profess them. If we believe that attuning and calm care is helpful and important in a trusting relationship, we need to practice that in the relationship we have with ourselves and the relationships we have with others. When we are doing this kind of attunement with ourselves, we are teaching our younger self the consistency. I'm going to keep coming back to you. And for kids, when we look at the way kids learn trust, it is through consistency. When I work with adults and I ask them, what is your brain saying? What is the story that your brain is creating about what this means? There are typically a set of beliefs that they've created about the world. Those beliefs are formed out of a consistent set of experiences. I never felt seen by this parent. I always felt pushed away by this sibling. Always, never are big statements. Those are big words. They feel pretty ultimate. It tells me that you experienced it enough that it became a belief that was complete about how the world worked. And when we have those kinds of beliefs, they are formed through repetition, and they are formed through a, I want to say like a negativity bias, but it's not about just like the negative piece. It's just about the repetitive bias. When we are looking for something, when we are looking for an answer, or we have a belief about the world, we then see the world through that belief. It's like you have a hypothesis about how something's going to go, and it's really a survival mechanism. You're human for doing this. I do this. When we expect an outcome, we start to look for information that supports that belief. And then, because we're looking for information that supports that belief, we're not looking for information that disproves it. We're not looking to disprove this belief. And we're doing that because we believe that this belief keeps us safe. If I believe that people are inherently untrustworthy, I will go through my whole life looking for behaviors and relationships that prove that point. And then one day I find myself with no relationships, no healthy ones anyways. I most likely find myself alone. This is a real story of me. And I find myself in relationships that don't actually see me. I find myself in relationships where people don't show up for me. Then I start to get mad at the world, right? And our belief system then fuels everything about the way we move through the world, and it fuels everything in our body. So I'm having an experience, I'm having a conversation with somebody, and there's this lingering feeling, this belief, they're going to leave, they're untrustworthy, this is going to go wrong. And I can feel that in my body. And if I can feel that in my body, then that is a sign that my body's trying to get my attention. If I go towards that feeling in my body, I can get curious. Why do you believe that? Where did you learn this? Tell me what it's been like to live this way. And that is how we start to change it, by going towards the feeling, by going towards the body. And when you go towards the body in that way, you build that relationship, you build the consistency, and your brain will naturally get on board. You are smart. You have survived to this point. You have figured out enough things. Your brain will figure it out too. Your brain will figure it out. So if you have had an experience like this, where there's been this misattunement between brain and body, we can also look at it from the concept of reparenting ourselves. And I would guess, for those of you who are experiencing some kind of misattunement between brain and body, you also experience some kind of misattunement from a caregiver, from a parent, or from an adult in an authority position in your life, somebody who you saw regularly, let's say. I can always guarantee that the thing children need most when they're having an experience, whether it's good, bad, sad, weird, crazy, scary, happy, is a sense of togetherness. They want to be together in that experience. Even if it's scary, even if you're an avoidant person watching this going, no, I avoid conflict like the plague, you've learned that it's not safe to be with people in your experience. You've learned that you can't rely on people to help you co-regulate, and it's only safe to be in your emotional experience alone. As an avoidant person, that has been my experience as well. That's okay. Whew. And we are constantly met with opportunities to reparent ourselves. We are always met with opportunities to shift and change the way that we show up for our bodies. Today, right now, after this call, you could get off this and sit down and ask your body, how are you actually doing? If your body could sit down across from you at the table, what would your body want you to know about how today was for it? That's what this practice is about. It's about giving your body room to speak. And that is how we create space for the experiences. That is how you create more tolerance for discomfort. That is how you create a wider holding space for others. That is how we create deeper relationships with the people we love, by creating more space for our own experience within ourselves. Now, I want to note, I really referenced a lot of like childhood experiences or being a teenager, and it's not necessarily all your childhood. And I am using this term childhood pretty roughly. This is a wide range in my perspective. Your brain doesn't actually finish developing until you're 25. And so I don't actually consider people in their mid-20s to be adults yet, because you haven't finished developing quite yet. You are blooming, absolutely. You are that sunflower that's gonna be 6 feet tall, but you don't have all your petals yet. And then once you do have all your petals, what's your relationship with being a 6 foot tall sunflower with all these petals? What's that like? How do you feel about this on a day-to-day experience? Getting comfortable being a big sunflower. That is also a part of the experience. And so I actually spoke with somebody in the field recently who said that she doesn't consider you an adult until you're 30, because she likes to give you 5 years to acclimate to the experience of being adult you. And I really liked that. Not to say that we don't want to take people in their 20s seriously. I don't want to say that at all, actually. If anything, what I hope you take from today is that we want to validate the hell out of somebody's experience in their body. You're having an experience, and that is valid enough for me. That's it. You are having an experience. You don't have to tell me why. You don't have to tell me why it makes sense. You are having an experience, and that's good enough for me. So how can I come towards you while you're having that experience? Are you okay if I sit with you while you have that experience? You don't want to sit. You need to move in this experience. Pack it up. Let's go. Let's go for a walk. Let's go for a run. What do you need? I'm here with you. With you. Because that is what we're all really looking for. And when we are working on the disconnect between our brain and our body, being with the body is really how we change that. That is really how we do the work. If you can go towards yourself, if you can be with yourself, you can be with your inner child, with your inner teen, with your inner 25-year-old, with your inner 30-year-old, whatever, however old the age is that you feel in that moment, when you are activated and you go, oh, I feel like I'm 18 again. There's a little flag. You are dealing with the emotional 18-year-old inside of you. However, we're not 18 anymore. And so, because I'm not 18 anymore, I have different skills. I have a different capacity. If I could sit across from an 18-year-old me at a table and help her manage all of that shit, I would. I want to. God, I really want to, because she did not know how to do it then. And I want to do that. I want to make that choice. And that is where the integrity piece comes in. Again, integrity is choosing courage over comfort, practicing our values rather than simply professing them. And I want to note, if your experience of trauma is, I want to say, feeling bigger than you, that's okay. That's okay. It just means that you're going to have to practice this going towards your self-experience a lot. Not a bad thing. Not at all. Because actually the folks that I've worked with like this are some of the deepest feelers that I've ever met. If you are in the process of learning how to do this right now, please know that you can absolutely book a consultation call with my team. This is what we are here to do, is help you do this practice. If you are wanting to learn this work, but you're not quite ready for that one-on-one door opening experience, that's what my course is there for. Send me a DM. I'm happy to get you the link to it. It's also in the link in my bio. I want you to have these tools. I want you to know how to do this, because when I connect into the version of me that didn't know how to do this, God, I feel how hard everything was. Everything felt hard, because the experience of being in my body, being in relationship with my feeling body, was hard. Having feelings was hard, because I didn't know how to manage them, how to go towards them, how to befriend them, how to be with them. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can do this. You can absolutely do this. And what this looks like on a day-to-day experience can be sitting down or walking and tuning in, using your interoceptive muscle to ask your body, how are you really doing today? Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what's happening there. And then staying, attuning, comforting, soothing. And then when you're ready, what would you like to do about this? What can I do to help you? What can we do to take care of ourselves? But don't forget, your first action of doing is being with. And I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. This practice and this work is, I believe in this deeply. And I hope that today was helpful. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to send me a DM. Please feel free to book a consultation. Please feel free to jump into that 30-day course I have. I hope that this work can change your life in the way that it's changed mine. I'll talk to y'all soon.